Would you say you had a good relationship with other soldiers?
Don't forget, we don't use the word soldiers in the Navy. It's sailors.
Okay. To join the Navy?
I decided when my brother came into my room in my junior year of college, summer after my junior year, and said, have you given any thought to what you're going to be doing after you graduate, because you could very well get drafted?
Yeah.
And he was in the Navy. He was in the Naval NROTC program, and so I said, I haven't really been thinking about that. That's something I should be thinking about. And so I applied early in, I guess, the fall of my senior year of college for Naval Officer Candidate School, and it was purely to try to preempt the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got home from college after my senior year, there were 2 letters waiting for me in my mailbox. One was from the draft board reclassifying me as 1A, and the other was my acceptance letter to Naval OCS, which was a huge sigh of relief.
Mm-hmm.
So my decision was precipitated by the impending draft if I didn't.
Yeah. So, what was your attitude going into the war?
Well, it was, I was unattached, and I thought that it would be kind of cool to be on a destroyer out in the, in the Far East. And it was a mixture of sort of excitement that this is a cool adventure because I love to travel.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I got orders to my destroyer, which was stationed in Hawaii, which I thought was pretty cool. And also a feeling of they've got to be crazy. They actually want me to be in charge of the electronics of a destroyer. I don't know anything about that, and yet it's kind of the experience of most people going into the service. They're thrust into positions of responsibility that they are kind of both fear and kind of curious about.
Could you describe what your daily routine was on a normal day?
During when we were in the combat zone?
Yeah.
The watches were 6 hours on and 6 hours off. They call them port and starboard. And half the ship was port and half the ship was starboard. And I would be awakened to go up for the watch, and I'd go up and it would be a 6-hour watch. And it would be typically on the gun line where we were just offshore, right past the breakers, essentially, very shallow water,
Mm-hmm.
Offering fire support to the ground troops. And so the guns were going off, the people in the combat information center of our ship and the mappers were communicating with the shore constantly to spot fire, and I would be like the officer of the deck in charge on my watch, unless the captain was aboard up on the bridge, and we'd be sailing basically back and forth, shooting. Occasionally we got shot at, and I had to get out of there, but it was surreal, because the half of the watch that was not on duty would be fishing or listening to Saigon radio or sleeping or sunbathing on the deck. It was kind of a mixture of half the ship was at war and half the ship was kind of hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a beautiful country to see, and we would be, like, I remember coming coming off my watch. It was about 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Sun was low, and just the shore of Vietnam is just the most beautiful country you've ever seen. And all these fishing poles would be in the water, and I'd see jets flying over, dropping bombs, and I'd see tracers and bullets going back and forth on the land, and at the same time be listening to Saigon radio and feeling relaxed because my watch was over, and it was like being on the 50-yard line of a war.
Mm-hmm.
And looking up the coast, you could see, destroyer, cruiser, frigate, destroyer, and one time the battleship New Jersey, all just lobbing shells on land. It was a very surreal feeling.
Yeah. So could you kind of describe what goes through your head when you're being attacked?
Well, I want to be clear to distinguish the difference between being on a ship and being on the ground in the Army. I felt so fortunate to have gone through the path that I did, naval OCS and then destroyer duty, rather than, say, be drafted and maybe be a lieutenant of a platoon or a company on the ground. Those folks had it so hard, and I can't possibly relate to, I can't possibly claim that I know what war is like since I haven't done what they did. So all I can relate is my little narrow slice of existence, which was, I think, comparatively safe compared to those guys. Hugely more safe. So the time when we were approaching Hainan Island, which is a big Chinese-held island in the Gulf of Tonkin, which we were informed had Viet Cong, North Vietnamese positions entrenched, and so we approached this island to see if we could draw fire, and it was, we didn't want to shoot first because it was technically a Chinese island, and we didn't want to start a war with China. So we were all at general quarters and just were approaching just very, very slowly, just waiting to see if we get shot at. And I was thinking, there could be a shell coming through this ceiling right any minute. But that never happened. They didn't shoot at us. I know I heard a lot of stories about civilians kind of disparaging people who had been in Vietnam, and I never experienced any of that. And I did, the officers you had to have a college education to be an officer. And so I don't think any officers that I'm aware of ever experienced that either, of not being able to essentially move forward with their lives because of the Vietnam experience. I suppose the realistic...
So, your life after the war has been good?
Oh, yeah. Again, I feel lucky to have gone through it without being on the ground, without being injured or killed or left with horrible psychological scars that so many people were left with.